for the coaches, thank you for having me back for another talk. I am an independent energy auditor, so I'm not a contractor. I am always, on a day-to-day basis going to houses and advising homeowners on a lot of these things that you can do yourself. So there are some things that you really is better to have contractors for, but then there are a lot of things that you can do yourself. I'm definitely one of those kind of people that, if something breaks in my house, then my wife and I have the rule that I can try to fix it first, much to her chagrin, I'm sure. But before I go out and spend a ton of money, I want to at least take a shot at it myself. And sometimes I've been able to save a lot of money and cause great headaches other times. So this is really just a presentation of different things that I make recommendations for as an auditor. I certainly give a pretty long list of like a to-do list in houses. A lot of that is DIY. For everyone here and online who's not afraid to roll up their sleeves and do a little work on their own house, then this is for you guys. Right? So just a few notes before we get started. So some of the pictures that you're going to see in this presentation are using some diagnostic equipment just so that you can, kind of visually see what's going on. So I'm using the blower door test here. This is a temporary door frame with a fan in it, and that measures the air leakage in the house. It simulates a 20-mile-per-hour wind hitting the house. It depressurizes the house. So especially right now in the winter, with the blower door running, you can use the infrared camera, which you see on the right here, and you can actually see the cold air coming into the house. So it really kind of makes it quite easy to see where you have heat loss and air leakage in the house. So you're going to see a bunch of pictures of using an infrared camera just so that I can make it visible for you all to see. Also, I want to make a note. A lot of the projects that we're going to be going over tonight, these are really kind of treating the effect and not the cause, because things like, I'll zoom ahead a little bit here. Window shrink wrap. It's a great DIY project to do, but it's not fixing the problem in the first place. Why is air leaking through the window in the first place? So some of these DIY projects can be really effective. I just want to point out that a lot of times, it's just kind of putting a Band-Aid on things, but sometimes Band-Aids work really well. And also a couple of notes about some of the equipment that I'm going to be kind of making reference to. So we have the caulking gun on the left here, Alex Plus. I have certainly used plenty of that in my house. So just a simple caulking gun. And then you can see there's the foam gun here in the middle picture. And then there's the two different types of canned foam there. So if you see this presentation tonight, you want to tackle some air sealing and try and seal up some air leaks in your house. If you think that you are only ever going to use 1 or 2 cans of spray foam, small cans, like great stuff here, that's fine. If you think you're going to be tackling projects that are going to require multiple cans, I definitely recommend that you spend $50 and get that foam gun that you see the guy using there on the window frame here. The nice thing with the foam guns is they can be reused over and over. If you've ever used like that great stuff in the can with the little straw on the top, then you know that if you use half of it and then put it on the shelf, it's done. You're not using it again because the end of the straw gets clogged up and that's it. Also, if you have a foam gun here, then you can get the cans of foam that are larger, has more for pretty much the same price. Just screws in the top, and it actually gives you a lot more touch control to have just a little bit or quite a bit. Two things I want to point out with the cans of foam. So you see the blue can here. This is low expanding foam that is specifically for windows and doors to air seal around the window and door frames. And then the can on the right here, the red can, this is what most of us normally think of when we think of like a can of spray foam. This is the normal stuff here. you can use this to fill all kinds of cracks and gaps throughout the house. The issue is you cannot use that around windows and doors because it just expands too much, and you can actually crack pieces of glass by the expansion, and you can warp the doors and windows. So specifically for doors and windows, you want that blue can here. As far as the caulking goes, I mentioned here Alex Plus. I like to use clear silicone caulking. Everything in your house moves around a little bit over season to season. So you want to use silicone caulking, which is rubberized and it has a little bit of play to it. So as the house kind of moves around a little bit, it's not going to crack the caulking. So if you use just regular painter's caulking, anytime that moves, it just cracks and it doesn't really air seal that well. All right, so onto the shelf. All right, so window shrink wrap. People ask me about using the window shrink wrap here. It is fairly easy to install. It's pretty low cost. It is effective. You can put that up over the inside of the window. There's an adhesive, a tape adhesive that goes around the edge of it. So, as a pretty low cost and easy thing to install, it does work pretty well. Some cons though is that it does tear very easily. So cats seem to love coming over and tearing it, and then it's basically useless after the cat shreds it. You have to get rid of it at the end of the season. When you take the plastic off, a lot of times the adhesive tends to rip the paint off of the window frame. So that's not, it's not great also. Also, it looks like you have saran wrap on your windows because you basically do. It's saran wrap, right? So pros and cons. One step beyond that. We'll get to that in a second. There's windows, locks, and latches. So this may sound really simple, but really, one of the best ways that you can make sure that your windows are performing as best as they can is to make sure at the beginning of each heating season that the windows are locked and latched. Most people don't do that. And I can tell you that because every time I run a blower door at every audit, I always find windows that are not latched. The latches are what actually seals the upper and lower sashes together. It pulls them together. Otherwise, you have a lot of air coming through. So with the infrared camera, you can see all that purple streaking is just cold air that's coming up between the inside or the bottom sash and the upper sash. So beginning of each season, heating season, just take a few minutes, go through the house, make sure all the windows are latched. All right, so beyond the plastic shrink wrap, there are a couple of different type of window inserts. This is what I really recommend, not exterior storm windows. Those don't really work especially well. I've heard some people say that, my old single pane windows with the storm on the outside is better than any new replacement window you can get. No, I've never seen that. No. That is not true. So if you have exterior storm windows, they rattle a lot. The air just kind of moves through it. It slows it down. It makes it better. But what really makes a big difference is interior window inserts that you can put in the window. Something like the Window Dressers program is fantastic. It's a community volunteer program. They'll come to different communities and have a window dressers build. And they basically use these wood frames, and they use that shrink wrap plastic, but they put it on both sides. So it's a double pane insert. And then they put the foam weather stripping gasket around the edge, and that goes right into the window. And I can tell you these work really well. I mean, whenever I do a blower door test and people have window inserts, it's really clear which ones have the inserts and which don't. So these are really good. You can also make your own window inserts. You can have this kind of a shrink wrap plastic on a wooden frame. Again, cats, they just seem to love these. If you have shredded plastic, then you have to bring it back to window dressers and they got to rewrap it. And another way to do it there's this YouTube video link here that I think this is going to be available, right? The presentation, or you can take a picture of that. There are lots of different YouTube videos on how to make an interior window insert. This is by far the best video that I found. I've done a few of my windows at my house with this specific type, and it's perfect. Oh my God. I mean, coming through my windows whatsoever. It's super airtight. So what they do is it's basically plexiglass panels that you can buy from Lowe's or Home Depot. You give them the measurements, they'll cut it for you. And you put a rubberized gasket around the edge of it, and that goes into the inside, in front of the windows inside. And I mean, it just completely stops any air leakage through. It's great. And then also you can buy these online. There are different companies like Indo that you go to their website and you put in the dimensions of the windows and they'll make them for you and mail it to you. But they're almost as expensive as a new window. It's like, what is the point? But it does exist. If you don't want to make it yourself, you can buy them. Or just use window dressers. They're great.
Plexiglass, obviously, that's different than the other ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it holds up a lot better.
Yeah.
You know, it can take a lot more abuse.
And you can put that foam around the edge of the plexiglass.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The video has a specific product, a rubberized gasket that you would buy and put around. But I mean, you can make one for like $40 that they work really, really well. So this would be something that you just have in during the winter time. I mean, you can leave this in if you wanted to throughout the year, but certainly in the winter time, it would, you know, these are ways that you can avoid having to replace windows. Windows are really expensive. You know, the cost benefit is usually not really very good to replace them. Window companies hate me for saying this. I will always recommend that you go with air sealing and insulation and like everything else in the house, and then do the windows last. So do the insulation and air sealing. That's going to pay for itself. It's going to save you money. And then once you have all of that savings and you want to go spend it on windows, then you can do that. But there's so many other things that are much more cost effective.
Is the plexiglass a double pane like the plastic?
No, it's
how
single.
Is it assembled? It's got a frame like the plastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just a piece of plexiglass, and you put the framing of the gasket around it. But they actually use wood quarter round trim. You put quarter round in the window frame first, and then you caulk and seal that, and then you would put the plastic sheet in, and then you put another piece of quarter round in front of that, but basically like sandwiches it in and holds it in place.
thank you.
So, yeah, so it makes it super airtight. So air sealing around window trim. So there's really two main ways that you have air leakage through windows. One is through the window itself, and then the second way is air that's coming around the windows. So if you were to take any window in your house and take the wood window trim off here, then you would actually see underneath there's a rough opening that is usually about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. There's a bit of a gap there. Usually there's like fiberglass kind of stuffed in there, and that does not stop air leakage at all. The air just goes right through that. So rather than take all the wood trim off and, you know, have this major project in your house, one way that you can help is to use clear silicone caulking like along the edge here. Not saying this is Rob's house, but it might be similar to Rob's house. All right, so with the blower door running, you can use the infrared camera here. You can see that there's air leakage coming through the bottom of the wood trim here, wood trim on the side. So if you just use that clear silicone caulking and just put a bead of caulking right where that wood trim meets the drywall. That's going to stop a lot of the air leakage coming through there. Yeah.
Does it matter what time of year you apply silicone caulking? Like,
Nope.
Okay.
Because it's flexible, so it can move a little bit. Clear silicone caulking, just so you know, when you put it on, it's white and then it will dry clear. So don't be alarmed when you first put it on and you have this white stuff on your wall. It'll dry. You don't need much of it, so don't be too heavy-handed. Doesn't take much.
Do you use a paintable caulking in case you want to make it match, or you think just clears? I mean, how would you paint next time you paint the room? How
Yeah,
would
you
deal with
could
that
you can
caulking?
paint over it. It's fine.
So you need to get paintable caulking, so some of it isn't paintable.
I've never had to do that before. But when you apply it, at least then it dries, then it's clear. And if you just use a little bit in the corner, then it shouldn't be a problem, I think. All right, so it's easier. Again, this is like treating a symptom and not the disease here. So you're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on things, but it is effective, it works. And this is definitely easier than trying to remove all the wood trim. I'll try to convince homeowners, take off all that wood trim and air seal and insulate underneath, and everyone's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So, okay, all right. Here's a way to do it. All right, so we see here a couple of pictures of the rough opening around the window, so you can see there's just a bit of a gap right here. So that's there intentionally, so that when they install the windows, they can adjust it, shim it, so that it's nice and plumb and level. So they intentionally have space around that frame, but there's a lot of air leakage that comes through there. And like I said, if you pull off old window trim, either there's not going to be anything there at all, or there's just going to be fiberglass, the pink stuff that they just kind of stuffed in there. This is actually my house. In the middle picture here, there was a good like 3-inch gap. I took off the window trim. I'm like, what? Nobody thought to fill that up. Okay, so I did it. But this is really common that you take off the window trim and there's nothing there. Yeah.
Is there an alternative to the canned foam if you're not enthusiastic about?
Yes, perfect. So foam backer rod here, it is still a foam product, but it's already off gas. It's not going to release chemicals in your house. Foam backer rod, it's like a long, like think of like a pool noodle, but much thinner, right? So you can get it in different diameters, and you can just get like a 1/2 inch here and just kind of stuff it in there, and that will air seal it and insulate it. So that, or like I said, low expanding foam. I had a homeowner ask me one time, rather than remove the wood trim, can I just drill some small holes behind it and then put in like that can foam straw and like fill it up that way? So that is what we like to call spray and pray right there. All right. So that is bad. Do not do that. Very bad.
Yes, you can, but
All right. Better if you want to go that way, take the wood trim off. Don't. You want to know what's behind there. All right. All right. So door weatherization. So we're talking about the weather stripping that you would put around the door frame. And then also there's the door sweep that actually attaches to the bottom of the door itself. Right, so the weatherization does not attach to the door. It goes around the frame, and then the door sits into that. You can go to Lowe's or Home Depot. They have foam weather stripping tape that's got adhesive on the back. That's an easy way to do it. They also sell weather stripping door kits that you can buy that has the top and then the 2 sides to it, and you can install that. It's got a rubberized foam gasket that you can just screw into the sides of the door and the top, and then you can have that. It just kind of looks a little better than some foam weather stripping tape. So there are a couple of options there. Then also we have the door sweep here at the bottom. So there's a couple of different door sweeps that you can get. So this is what's called a straight sweep here. So when you shut the door, then that sweep is kind of closing up the gap underneath the door. But the issue with straight sweeps is they drag. You know, this is just a rubber gasket here. Eventually it's going to tear and it's going to get damaged. What you can install instead is called an auto sweep here, where that is on a hinge and it's spring loaded. So when you open the door, then the sweep pops up, and so it's not going to drag on the floor. And then when you close it, close the door, it closes back down again. They're not that much more expensive than a straight sweep. So you can buy either one at Lowe's or Home Depot. That's easy enough. You basically just cut it to fit the width of the door. It's fairly easy to install. Yeah, not a big deal. And then on the picture on the right here, we have air leakage through the wood trim up above the door. This is that purple streaking that you can see there. So this is really especially an issue because at this audit, this was the door into the garage, right? So when they park their vehicles in the garage, you don't want any of that exhaust gas and carbon monoxide coming into the living space. So you want to make sure, especially on the top of the window and the door frames, that you use the silicone caulking up there. The window installers and the door installers, they know you're never going to look up there. So usually if you like take your cell phone and do a selfie up at the top, then you'll actually be able to see that there's a bit of a gap there, because they know you're never going to look at it. All right, moving on. So we have air sealing down in the basement. So this is for the basement rim and band joists. This is basically where the house sits on the foundation wall. If you have an unfinished basement, if you go down there, you can see all these rim joist squares right here. This is where there's a lot of heat loss and air leakage in typically in basements. It's one of the biggest sources of heat loss here. Also, this is where rodents come in. This is really easy access for them. Mice can squeeze through about the thickness of a nickel, so they can come right through there. You know that because the exterminator companies will put mouse traps right in the rim joist because they know that's where they're coming in. They wouldn't actually seal it because that would be bad for business, right? So how do you fix this? You may have empty rim joists like you see here on the left, rim joist bays. You may have some of this pink fiberglass here. If you move the fiberglass aside, you can see that's not air sealed. It's really typical that it's not air sealed, unless somebody has specifically done that. So if you used an infrared camera with the blower door, you would see that in this middle picture here, the air leakage is just moving right through that fiberglass and bringing cold into the basement. You can go onto YouTube, you can see there's different ways of doing it. If you were to pay a contractor, what they would do is probably just use 3 inches of closed cell spray foam, and they would just fill up the rim joist here. That insulates and air seals it. That's what a contractor would want to do. What you can do for DIY is you can cut 2-inch rigid foam board into squares and just stuff it, fit it into each of these bays here, and then you basically use canned foam to picture frame all around that. So you can actually see a picture over here. This was at a house I did an audit at a few weeks ago, where they used the blue rigid foam, and then they just sealed around the perimeter with canned foam. Another option that you can do, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to be using foam board or spray foam, if you go around the perimeter here just with some canned foam, that's just going to be a little bit of foam. That's going to air seal that, and then you can cut 6-inch rock wool bats and stuff them into the bays. That works fine also. The issue here, if you're going to do DIY, if you live in a house that is older than dimensional lumber, so if you go down in the basement and you see logs, like cut logs, I just did an audit last week at a 1795 farmhouse, and that was before 2x8s and 2x10s, right? So this rim joist where the house sits on the foundation wall, in that house, it was 6 inches thick. all right, thick piece of, a big piece of log. So if that gets wet, which it will get wet, it's going to get rained on from the outside, there's going to be humidity on the inside, that wood has to be able to dry out in both inside and outside. If you put spray foam or foam board on the inside of that, that blocks it from drying on the inside, right? So if you have an old house like that, you don't want for them to use spray foam or foam board. That's where you see a lot of times issues of spray foam in the news of houses that have had problems, because eventually that wood is just going to rot, and then the entire house is sitting on rotted wood, right? So if as energy coaches, if you guys come into houses where it's not dimensional lumber, it's an old house, then you definitely want to stress this as the alternative here, where you're going to use rock wool insulation instead of foam board or spray foam, because rock wool can allow drying in both directions, right? So a regular like 2x8 or 2x10, it's thin, it can dry out. Even if you put spray foam against it, it's still going to dry out to the outside. That 6-inch log that the old house is on, it can't do it.
I was just gonna ask about why isn't it the same problem with the dimensional?
Yeah, it's thin enough that it can dry out. Even in one direction, it can dry out. Yeah. So that's a big distinction. A lot of insulation contractors that I have worked with, they hate it when I say this, because they just want to come in and spray foam stuff. They don't want to like spend time to cut rock wool and do it's not what they do. So I put it in my reports, and I'm very clear: do not let them spray foam the rim joist. That's going to destroy the foundation of the house.
When does the dimensional wood come in? I suppose it varies with the building, but
yeah,
when was that about in dates?
Like late 1800s, 1900 or so. I'm not quite sure that.
I've got 1868 house,
yeah.
And I did put foam on the. Should find out about that.
If you go down in the basement and look at the floor joist here, if they're like dimensional lumber, if it's like 2x8s or 2x10s, then you're good. But if it is thicker than that, and it looks like it was planed from a log, then
I was thinking about the sills actually.
Yeah. So the sills, as long as the floor joists are still original to the house, then the sills would be the same material as the floor joists.
Isn't it common for the lumber on the outer wall on top of the sill to be 2 pieces of 2x dimensional lumber? Not just 1, 2 for the strength. Isn't that how they typically build it?
I've never destroyed a house to find out. To be honest, I mean, I've certainly drilled a number of holes through rim joist, and it's usually just right 1 piece to the outside.
So you're saying all the way to the outside, it's only 1 piece? Okay.
That's why there's a lot of heat loss through that.
But if you're saying that on the right-hand picture, that's a functional, acceptable approach?
Yes, with dimensional lumber, yes.
Dimensional lumber.
Yep. So basement wall insulation. So I'm always going to tell people to prioritize, if you do nothing else in the basement, do the basement rim joist and band joist. That is going to be where you have a lot of heat loss and air leakage. Also, we're going to talk about tackling the basement windows. Those are always kind of a horror show. But you also have to consider the basement walls as well. So this picture on the left here, I used an infrared camera. You can actually see the above ground portion right here versus the below ground. So it's nice and purple and cold above ground. And then below grade, it is about 60 degrees. So this is a good place to be able to add some insulation here. What you add depends on, do you want it to be a finished space eventually? So you have to kind of think ahead. Like if you were going to insulate this poured concrete wall or this concrete block wall here, typically what is used is either spray foam, 2 inches of spray foam, or some kind of a rigid foam board product. That's typically what's used. So if you're going to put spray foam on it, then it's going to be hard to have a finished look. It's hard to like add drywall over that to finish that. It's much easier if you use rigid foam board. So you can kind of consider that. But concrete, it only has an R value of about 0.1 per inch. It doesn't do anything to stop the heat, just goes right out of it. So if I had taken the temperature up here, it would have been about 50 degrees. About 10-degree temperature difference just within one wall there. So I definitely, like, if you're trying to do everything you can to try and reduce heat loss in your house, the heat is just going right out through the basement walls. It's good to insulate those. You also, before you cover up these walls, you want to look for signs of moisture. So if you have concrete walls and you see kind of this white like staining here, this is an audit I did last month where he said, hey, I have this stuff on my walls in the basement. I had it tested. It's not mold. It's just like furry and weird looking. So that's moisture. That's moisture that's diffusing slowly through the concrete on a molecular level. Concrete is a porous material. It just wicks moisture right through it. So if you don't have gutters on the outside of your house, if you don't have good drainage, if there's water that drains off the roof and then just kind of pulls against the foundation walls, the basement walls, then this is what happens. So you definitely want to look for signs like that, that maybe you have some moisture issues going on that you want to take care of before you cover all that with insulation. So the 2-inch closed cell foam, it's much faster. They just put it on very quickly. The problem is that it's permanent. You can't really take it off unless you get in there with a chisel, and nobody wants to do that. So the alternative, you can use 2-inch rigid foam board that is fastened to the concrete walls. At least with that, you can take it off. Like if you see some water on the floor, you think there's maybe a crack in the foundation wall or something, you can take it off and then fix it and put it back, which you cannot do with spray foam. So it's definitely some considerations there. If you go down, especially for the coaches, if you guys go down into a basement that is finished and it's framed walls and there's some place that you can see behind it, if there's just fiberglass bat insulation up against the concrete walls here, that traps moisture. And there's going to be mold and mildew at some point. Maybe you don't see it, but it's behind there. If you were to cut open the wall, you'd see it. So especially if you come down into a basement and you're like, your nose will tell you if it smells musty and it's a finished basement, then there's moisture behind those walls, which is a bad day for everybody. So all basement windows, I get to pick on the basement windows. So this is from that 1795 farmhouse right here. She was so happy because look at these cobwebs right here, just cobwebs everywhere. I said, cobwebs are not a sign of bad housekeeping. Cobwebs are a sign of air leakage. They're a great visual indication that there's a lot of air leakage coming through the windows here. Spiders are really smart. They set up shop. They just wait for food to come to them. They don't have to do anything. Right. So if you guys go down in basements and you see cobwebs around the windows, there's a lot of air coming through the windows. Good visual indication. You don't need the $5,000 blower door for that.
So it's not because there's light.
Nope.
It's because there's leak.
Yeah, it's air. Yep. So this picture on the right here, this is a 1980s colonial that I did an audit here. You can see that the walls in the basement were spray foam. So they paid a lot of money to stop the heat loss through the walls, but they still have these old single pane sliding aluminum windows that, of course, the heat just goes right through that. So it's sort of like, you know, you paid so much money, yet you still have a ton of heat loss and air leakage right here. So usually basement windows are not that great. I mean, windows don't have much of an R value. Even if you have like modern double pane vinyl windows in your basement, they probably only have an R value of about maybe R3 total, versus like your exterior wall insulation might be R13, R19. The windows are minimal, right? So a lot of times what I'll recommend is for these basement windows like here or here, if this is not a finished basement, if nobody's living down there, just cover the windows. I mean, what are they even doing except losing a lot of heat? So if you cut 2-inch rigid foam board, put it in front of the window, you can use the can foam to air seal around the gap around the edge, and that will pretty much minimize any heat loss and air leakage through the basement windows. It's easy to remove later. You can just cut it right back out if you really wanted to, but I mean, there's a ton of heat loss. You can see this picture here in the crosshair. It's 45 degrees on the temperature of the surface of that window. And that is not even the cold part of the window. So a ton of heat loss right through there. Yep.
We were loath to lose the light that the little window like that.
Yep.
Brought in.
Yep.
So we bought the corrugated plastic translucent panel.
Yeah.
And cut it and fit that in, and
Yeah.
that helps. It's, you know, it's got some 2 layers and
Yeah.
plastic, so it provides some insulation, still lets the light through.
Yeah. Okay. So my alternative would be, I'll always recommend, hey, if you're going to cover the windows up, replace all of the screw-in light bulbs in your basement with 100-watt equivalent super bright LEDs. So you still have lots of light. But consider, unless you live in your basement, that's a different situation. But if you don't live in your basement, then you are getting a little bit of natural light, but you have a ton of heat loss. So you have to decide what you want to do. All right, next one. Dirt floor crawl spaces and basements. So if you go down into a basement and you see dirt floor, that is really bad. So like red flag should go off and say, hey, this is like before you do anything else in the house, you know, yes, insulate your attic, your walls, everything is awesome, but you have to take care of this moisture issue. All right, so this picture on the left here, I'm assuming that this is a Halloween decoration. I'm 98% certain that's not real. I see a lot of weird stuff, man. This was like last week. I just saw that. Had to put that in there.
Yeah.
So this picture on the left, exposed dirt floor crawl space. This picture on the right, from that same house, it's just dirt in the basement. So sometimes I'll point that out to homeowners and they'll say, but it's never wet. It's like a dry dirt. No, there's moisture that comes up through the ground into the basement. And what happens in the basement happens in the house. Of course, it's going to migrate up into the house. So how do you solve that? If we all had money, as much money as we needed, then we could just pay a contractor to come in and pour a concrete slab over the dirt. That would be great, but most of us aren't going to be able to do that. So you can use a plastic vapor barrier, a thick plastic vapor barrier, not thin like 6 mil poly that you would use for like covering windows when you're painting or something, but like thick 12 millimeter plastic sheeting. Vapor barriers have to be sealed, continuously sealed. Like you have to tape the seams of the plastic, you have to seal it to the basement walls. So right here, we can see that there is plenty of plastic sheeting covering the dirt, but you see there's like a 6-inch gap right around the edge here. This is doing nothing at all, absolutely nothing, because the moisture is going right around it. So it has to be completely sealed and continuous. You know, if you have like a 3-foot section in the corner that you ran out of plastic, it's not going to do anything. You got to make sure it's totally sealed and continuous. All right. So like I said, what happens in the basement happens in the living space. So, the humidity just comes right up into the house. Radon comes up into the house that way. All kinds of indoor air quality issues. So for something like this, I'm recommending that you cover it with a plastic vapor barrier, and then you use a dehumidifier year round to make sure that you are controlling the humidity in the basement. If you have a dirt floor and a dehumidifier, that thing's just going to run all the time. So you got to try and control it. Sure. Look at the time.
7:15. So
okay. All right. Attic accesses last week. So this was a 1980s colonial. The attic hatch panel here. I mean, it looks kind of nice. It's painted. Looks like it's in good shape. I moved it up side into the attic. You can see that rodents peed all over it. You can see with the infrared camera that the air leakage just goes right through it. All the heat loss goes right through it. So it may look really nice, but this isn't actually doing anything at all. So you want to replace this with a piece of 3/4 inch thick solid plywood. You can paint the front of it so it looks nice. You want to add 2 layers of 2-inch rigid foam board onto the back of the plywood panel. You want to add foam weather stripping tape all around the hatch framing so that when that panel sits on the weather stripping, it's going to air seal it. So this is always, like almost always a weak spot in most people's attics is the attic access, the hatch. Similarly, you have a pull down staircase, air just goes right through that, heat goes right through that. So you can build an insulated box cover with rigid foam, put that over the top of the opening so that when you put the pull down back up, then it's insulating and covering that. So there's the rigid box. You can buy like quilted, zippered caps for those. That works. If you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, they're going to sell you a fiberglass bat tent that's just like a triangle that goes up over the pull down. Please, for the love of God, do not use those. Anytime you have to go into the attic, you basically have just a face full of fiberglass. It's horrible, and it doesn't stop any air leakage at all. All right, exterior dryer vents. Sometimes as an energy auditor, I feel like I'm the dryer vent police because this is what most people's dryer vents look like, right? So if it's stuck open like that from all the collection of lint and everything, then that's just a direct pathway for air leakage right into your house. And when people say, hey, my laundry room always feels cold, right? Because you have a hole right to your outside. So I always recommend replacing these with a magnetic flap style vent. It's going to open up when the dryer is running, and then it'll seal back closed again. Rodents can't get in, stops air leakage. And then you want to make sure that you clean out the vent like every 3 months to prevent lint buildup. So that's kind of an easy DIY thing, stop air leakage.
What happens if your dryer vent is in a place you can't get to?
You need to fix it so that you can't get to it.
Yeah.
So like if it's coming underneath a porch that you can't really get in,
Yeah.
you can extend the vent out with a duct like over to this edge of the porch so that you can clean it out. You can just extend it. Otherwise, if you can't get under the porch, it's just going to look like that.
Why would somebody do that? The guy who built the deck,
Right.
he knew that the vent was there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not his job.
That's right.
All right. So using the caulking throughout the house, this is a little bit harder if you don't have an infrared camera to use, but if you have exposed timber in the house, like exposed beams like that, where the drywall meets the exposed timber, there's always gaps where air leakage can come through. This is around, I did this last week. This was around the brick fireplace here. There's a gap where the brick meets the drywall. So it's usually where two different materials come together. And if you look closely, there's usually a bit of a gap there. And then on the right here, this is just at the top of a wood staircase. There's wood trim on the staircase here. Again, it's just where the wood trim meets the drywall. There's a bit of a gap. Use the blower door infrared camera. This is very, very easy to see, but otherwise you just have to kind of go around looking for gaps. So use your caulking gun, just put it, use it on everything. All right. Foam gaskets behind.
Question,
Yep.
sorry, keep bugging you.
Absolutely.
Are these infrared cameras available for rent anywhere?
Yes.
Where would one rent such a thing?
There's only one place in the state that I know of that rents infrared and blower door cameras.
Oh, so that's a qualified yes.
Yes. See me afterwards.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, I'm not here to sell anything, but they should be available everywhere, really. You know, like builders should have access to this equipment at the very least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I rent blower doors and infrared cameras. Anyway, foam gasket behind the switches. If you have fiberglass bats in your exterior walls, which most people do, that's the most common insulation type. As we know now, air just moves right through fiberglass. So with the blower door running, it's really common that I see a lot of air leakage through the wall outlets here. You know, wall switches, wall outlets. So fortunately, you can buy these foam gaskets pretty cheap. Just buy them on Amazon. You take the outlet plate off, put the foam gasket in behind there, and then put the plate back on. You don't have to be an electrician. It's easy to do. And that stops some of the air leakage coming through there. So easy DIY project there.
Only on exterior walls though, right?
If you have a lot of air leakage coming through the interior walls, that means your attic is probably not air sealed, or your basement, and then you need to fix that problem and not use the Band-Aid. Also, foam pipe wrap in basements. Honestly, I'm shocked and amazed whenever I come into a basement and people actually have foam pipe wrap everywhere, because most people just don't do it. Don't ever pay a contractor to do this. This is easy. It's low cost. It's easy to do. The thing is, the foam pipe wrap here, it comes in different sizes, different diameters. So you have to buy the right size. But just go to Lowe's or Home Depot. They sell them, you know, by the ton here. So it's really easy to do it yourself. I always recommend that you do the hot and the cold lines. Just do everything. Right? The hot lines, you're trying to stop heat loss. The cold lines, you want to stop condensation. You want to stop them from leaking in the summertime. Also, copper pipes here, but also PEX tubing, right? People just assume they don't need to insulate PEX. Plastic is not insulation. It still needs to be covered with foam pipe wrap if you can. The number one reason why your pipes in the basement or in the walls freeze is because of air leaks. It's not the temperature, it's the air leaks. It's cold air that is able to blow in across that copper pipe is going to freeze it. So this picture on the right here, this is the rim joist where the house sits on the foundation. You got the air leakage through the rim joist, and you got the hot water pipe right in front of it. And that's just asking to be frozen right there. All right, and then recessed lights. I love picking on recessed lights. All right, so the recessed light cans, the old light cans, they're designed to allow for a lot of heat loss and air leakage. They're built that way on purpose so that when you put in an incandescent light bulb, it's not going to overheat and short out the fixture. So they actually cut a lot of slots on the side of the fixtures to let the heat out so it doesn't overheat. So these are basically just a hole cut in your ceiling. And of course, no one has one. They always have like 6 or 8 or 10 of them, right? So I always recommend that people just replace them if possible. It's not a big deal. This is a DIY thing. You know, as coaches, don't ever do this at somebody's house, but tell them they can do it. You can do your own electrical work, right? So you already have the hole in the ceiling. You already have the wires. All you have to do is shut it off at the panel, take off the old fixture, use this LED wafer thin fixture here, You just plug in the wires into the new fixture, and it's the same size. It just goes right up in the hole again. So it's really easy to put in. Watch a couple of YouTube videos. It's not scary to do, I promise. I've done a bunch of them myself in my house. Not doing it for anybody else. Also, another alternative to these kind of LED lights, you can go up in the attic and you can buy called recessed light hats that sit over it, or like some kind of a rigid foam board box that sits over it, and then you can air seal around the box, and that's going to stop the air leakage through as well. Much better to replace the light fixture if possible, but the hats, they work. Yeah.
I had insulation put in, loaned insulation put in my attic, and I think they did that around, because I have, once again, contractors just said, oh, you know, get recessed lights, like,
Yeah.
they didn't say anything about air leakage or anything when
Sure.
I did some renovations.
Yeah, if you drive around like on a day like today, where people have snow on the roof and you see like a bunch of black circles, like specifically above where there's a bunch of recessed lights, you can see like, oh, they must have a lot of recessed lights. Also chimney balloons. So I did this audit just the other day. This was an unused fireplace, hasn't been used in years. And you can see that the damper is closed here. But when I ran the blower door, you could feel a ton of air leakage still coming through. Even with it closed, still comes right through. So that's heat that's just going right up the chimney. So if you have a fireplace that is not used a lot, like, and I mean like if it's used every week, don't worry about it. But if it's only used occasionally, buy a chimney balloon. This is basically an inflatable bag that just goes up inside the damper. You inflate it, it takes the shape of the chimney, you don't have air leakage anymore. And then you can deflate it, pull it out, and just reuse it again. If someone never uses the chimney, then just block this with rigid foam board. Use canned foam to air seal it in place, and you never worry about it again. Never gonna have heat loss through there. So that's one. Chimneys. Putting in programmable thermostats. Something like this, the dial thermostat here, these are typically very inaccurate. They're just not very accurate. And you can't program this, and it's full of mercury. So really 3 strikes here. So these all use low voltage wiring. So it's not going to hurt you at all if you take this off and then put one of these Honeywell thermostats on. I always recommend that you reduce the temperature for the boiler or furnace by 6 degrees. You program a 6-degree setback at night. That can save you up to 10% on your heating costs just by doing that. These are like 35 bucks at Lowe's or Home Depot. They're pretty simple. If you want to get real fancy, you can put in a Nest smart thermostat. You can use your phone and control it and have all that fun. But just a simple Honeywell thermostat is pretty easy. And it's really easy to install. I mean, the manual comes with it. It's not hard to do. So I always recommend that. Unless people have heat pumps, then you don't use the thermostat. You don't turn the temperature up and down. You set it and forget it. Leave it at the same temperature. Right, Rob?
Yes.
Yes. He knows. Rob will tell you. All right. This is a DIY air filter that you can buy. If you're concerned about indoor air quality and you don't want to spend a ton of money on like negative ion filters and all that stuff, you can build one for really cheap and they work really, really well. This is called a Corsi Rosenthal box. Here's the YouTube link for that. There are tons of videos that show you how to make it. So this is basically you're buying 4 furnace air filters. You tape the sides together, and then you put a window box fan on the top, and it's pulling air up through. So it's pulling air in through all of these 4 filters and catches all of the dust. So I may or may not have created a hazardous indoor environment by removing my chimney this last year, and my wife freaked out. And so we went out and bought a couple materials to build a couple of these, and they worked really, really well, really well. So It's not pretty, but it's really cheap and it's very, very effective.
How did you know it was working well?
You could just see all of the dust collector on the sides. So, you could just put this on low and just run it all the time. And then you replace these filters like once every 3 months or so. But I mean, the before and after, I had a lot of creosote in my house, which, I didn't really think about that when I knocked the chimney down. But I mean, you could see like within a day that the filters were black. And then I just replaced them and it cleaned everything. It was really, really effective. All right, a couple of things. Maybe you don't want to do DIY. Just want to end it with this. Blowing in insulation into your walls. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Don't do that. The machinery that you can, the blowers that you can rent at Lowe's or Home Depot, they're not powerful enough to do exterior wall insulation where you're actually dense packing under high pressure. You're going to drill into cables in your house and plumbing. Don't leave that for professionals. Do everything else. I love DIY. Just don't do that. You can rent machines and blow it in the attic here, like you see. Before, what you don't see here is before they blow in insulation, they've gone through the attic and done all the air sealing work. So they use that can foam. They're sealing up all of the top plates of the interior walls, the 2x4 headers of all the walls, wire, plumbing penetrations, the chimneys. They're sealing all of that up, and then they're blowing a ton of insulation over it. If you don't air seal it first, or you don't do a good job, then somebody is going to have to go swimming through 18 inches of cellulose to get to that, which nobody's going to want to do. Nobody. All right, so that, and then spray foam in the basement. Yeah, definitely do not do spray foam yourself. You gotta like wear the hazmat suit. You can actually catch your house on fire by doing it. Like if you go onto YouTube and watch videos of like, how do I do this myself? There are kits that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot that you can spray foam your walls. But all of those videos are going to say, hey, have a fire extinguisher right next to you at all times because the wall can spontaneously combust and catch on fire. But don't do that. Don't do that. Let a professional do that if you're going to do that. All right, and then we have one more. Yes, that's my info here. If you need to reach me, let's see. I have Facebook and Instagram that I like hardly ever post anything on ever, but you can find me there as well. What? All right, so I think we still have time for some questions. Anybody have any questions?